Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be tackling mindfulness at work,
Yeah.
and we're going to be using two academic papers by Jonathan Passmore as our guide.
Great.
You know, it seems like mindfulness is
It's
everywhere these days.
it's everywhere you go.
But is it all it's cracked up to be?
Right.
Does it actually boost performance, or is it just another wellness fad? We're going to find out.
We will be diving deep into the research,
Yes.
but also looking at the practical applications.
Perfect. Now, I have to admit, I get a little lost with all the different definitions of mindfulness out there.
Yeah.
It seems like every app and guru has their own take.
Yeah, that's true. There isn't one universally agreed upon definition.
Right.
But for our purposes today,
Sure.
we can focus on some core elements that Passmore highlights:
Yeah.
awareness, attention, non-judgment, and acceptance.
So basically being present in the moment without getting caught up in judgments or trying to change things,
Exactly.
that's something I think we can all relate to, especially at work.
Absolutely. And, it's fascinating because the benefits of mindfulness aren't just anecdotal.
Right.
Passmore points to some pretty compelling research on how it impacts our brains.
Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
Well, studies have shown that mindfulness can actually change the structure of our brains,
Wow.
particularly in areas related to attention, memory, and executive function.
Okay.
The stuff that helps us make decisions and control impulses.
So it's not just about feeling calmer, it's about literally rewiring our brains for the better.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It's almost like mindfulness is a workout for your brain,
I like that.
making you more focused and resilient.
A workout for your brain.
Yeah.
So how does all of this translate to the workplace? I'm curious, does mindfulness actually make you better at your job?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
And while the research is still evolving,
Right?
there are some studies that have attempted to measure the impact of mindfulness on job performance.
What did they find?
For example, one study found that restaurant employees who scored higher on mindfulness measures actually received higher performance ratings from their managers.
Interesting. So there's at least some evidence to suggest that being more mindful can translate into tangible results.
Right, and there's more.
Okay.
Other studies have shown that mindfulness training can help improve something called goal-directed self-regulation.
Goal-directed what now?
Think of it this way.
Okay.
You're working on a project, but keep getting distracted by emails.
Yeah.
Your phone, that coworker who loves to chat.
Right.
Goal-directed self-regulation is what helps you resist those distractions and stay focused on what you need to get done.
Ah, okay. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
So mindfulness helps you stay on track and achieve your goals, which is obviously crucial in any work environment.
Precisely, and beyond performance. Studies have also found that mindfulness interventions can reduce emotional exhaustion and increase job satisfaction.
Less burnout and happier employees. Sounds like a win-win to me.
Yeah.
But I have to ask, is it really a cure-all? Are there any downsides?
Well, as with anything, it's not a magic bullet.
Right.
Passmore cautions us that the research is still relatively young,
Okay.
and some studies have shown only a weak link between mindfulness and work engagement.
So it's important to be realistic and not overhype the benefits.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And as we move forward, it's crucial to think critically about how mindfulness is being applied in organizations.
Okay.
Passmore explores several key areas, starting with leadership development.
Okay, mindfulness and leadership.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued. How do those two connect?
Well, Passmore introduces this fascinating concept of wisdom in leadership
Okay.
and how it relates to mindfulness. You see, there's growing research suggesting that wisdom isn't just something you acquire with age.
Right.
It can actually be cultivated through specific practices.
So you're saying we can develop a wise mind through mindfulness. I'm listening.
Exactly. And this ties back to two key models of wisdom that Passmore discusses,
Okay.
one by Baltz and another by Meeks. They both break down wisdom into different factors or components.
Like what? Give me an example.
Well, both models emphasize things like having a broad knowledge base,
Okay.
understanding different perspectives, managing uncertainty,
Yeah.
and making decisions that benefit the common good.
So it's not just about being smart or knowledgeable. It's about having a more holistic and ethical approach.
Right.
That makes sense. But how does mindfulness fit into all of this?
That's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Passmore suggests that mindfulness practices can actually help cultivate these very qualities in leaders.
I'm curious how so.
Well, for example, mindfulness can help leaders step out of their usual thought patterns
Okay.
and gain a more objective perspective on their emotions and behaviors.
Hmm.
Instead of reacting impulsively, they can pause, reflect, and make more considered choices.
Ah, so it's about increasing self-awareness and emotional regulation. I can see how that would be valuable for leaders.
Absolutely. And it's not just about emotional control.
Okay.
It's about becoming more comfortable with discomfort.
Wait, what? Becoming comfortable with discomfort. How does that work?
Think about it this way. If you can learn to sit with difficult emotions and not get swept away by them,
Mm,
you become more resilient.
okay.
You're better able to handle stress and challenges without losing your cool, which is essential for effective leadership.
Okay, that makes sense. So mindfulness isn't about avoiding discomfort. It's about learning to navigate it more skillfully.
Exactly.
Okay.
Passmore also talks about the importance of embracing opposites,
Okay.
of being able to hold seemingly contradictory ideas or perspectives without feeling threatened.
That sounds tricky. How does mindfulness help with that?
By cultivating non-judgment and acceptance,
Mm-hmm.
instead of seeing things as black and white, right or wrong, you start to appreciate the complexity and nuance of situations.
Yeah.
It helps you become more flexible and adaptable in your thinking.
So mindfulness helps leaders become more open-minded and tolerant of different viewpoints.
Yeah. Precisely. And to illustrate this, Passmore shares a rather amusing anecdote about a management team using mindfulness to manage conflict.
Okay.
They were given this exercise where they had to build miniature shopping carts
Okay.
while listening to the sound of buzzing flies.
Okay, that sounds intentionally annoying.
The purpose was to create a situation that mimicked the distractions and frustrations they faced at work.
Yeah.
And by doing a mindful body scan beforehand,
Mm-hmm.
they were able to stay more focused on the task and manage their frustration.
Okay.
Later, they were able to connect this experience back to their work
Yeah.
and find ways to apply mindfulness to handle real-world challenges.
That's a great example. It shows how mindfulness can be applied in a practical way to address workplace issues.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, how do we know if these interventions actually lead to lasting change?
That's the key question, isn't it? And as Passmore points out, evaluation is often the missing piece in a lot of organizational development initiatives.
Yeah.
We get so excited about the new shiny tool that we forget to measure whether it's actually working.
It's like buying the latest gadget without reading the instructions or knowing if it actually does what it claims.
Exactly. While qualitative feedback is valuable,
Right.
we need more robust evaluations that include quantitative data.
Yeah.
We need to connect mindfulness to tangible outcomes like improved performance metrics or even things like reduced absenteeism.
So it's about proving the ROI of mindfulness, showing that it's not just a feel-good practice, but something that can actually benefit the bottom line.
Exactly. And this applies not only to leadership development,
Okay.
but also to another area where mindfulness is gaining traction,
Okay.
workplace well-being programs.
Right. We're seeing companies like Google and even the U.S. Army incorporating mindfulness into their employee development strategies.
That's right. And while the classic 8-week mindfulness-based stress reduction program, or MBSR, might be a bit much for some organizations to implement.
Yeah, I can imagine who has the time for an 8-week course on top of their already packed schedule.
Exactly. So Passmore highlights some shorter, more practical alternatives.
Okay, I'm all ears. What are some examples?
Well, one option is to offer mindfulness as part of a broader stress management program,
Okay.
maybe even condensed into a single day.
So like a crash course in mindfulness techniques.
Yeah.
What else?
Another approach is to break it up into a series of shorter sessions,
Okay.
like half-day workshops delivered once a month.
Spreading it out over time, but still making it manageable. I like that. Anything else?
Another option is to have regular lunchtime drop-in sessions, especially if there's someone internally who can lead them.
So like a weekly mindfulness practice group. I'm guessing consistency is key here.
Absolutely. These bite-sized approaches make mindfulness more accessible and less overwhelming for employees.
Yeah.
But even with these shorter programs, the same principles of evaluation apply.
Right.
Can we measure the impact on things like absenteeism, employee turnover, or even team performance?
It all comes back to connecting mindfulness to those measurable outcomes.
Precisely. And that brings us to another area where mindfulness is making its mark.
Mm.
Coaching.
Ah, yes. The one-on-one approach to development. I'm curious, how does mindfulness come into play here?
Well, Passmore, along with other researchers and practitioners, highlights the potential benefits of incorporating mindfulness into coaching for both the coach and the client.
Okay, break it down for me. What are some of the benefits?
Well, for starters, mindfulness can help coaches be more present and focused during their sessions.
Okay.
It can also help them manage their own emotions and avoid bringing unhelpful biases to the table.
Hmm.
And of course, they can also teach mindfulness techniques to their clients if appropriate.
So it's about helping coaches be more effective and present in their role.
Exactly. Passmore even provides a practical example called the lobby body scan.
Oh, okay.
Imagine a coach waiting in the client's lobby before a session instead of scrolling through their phone or letting their mind race.
Yeah.
They take just 4 minutes to do a mindful body scan.
Interesting. What does that involve?
It's simply about bringing awareness to your physical sensations, your emotions, your mental state.
Mm-hmm.
It's a way to ground yourself and become fully present before the session even begins.
I love that it's like a mini meditation to get into the right headspace. But again, the question of evaluation comes up.
Yeah.
How do we know if mindful coaching is truly more effective than traditional approaches?
That's where further research comes in.
Right.
But there's a lot of potential to explore the impact of mindfulness on things like concentration, decision-making, and the coach-client relationship.
It's definitely a fascinating area for further exploration. Now, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to touch on some of the words of caution that Passmore shares.
Okay.
He brings up the McMindfulness critique, this idea that mindfulness is being watered down and losing its depth. What are your thoughts on that?
It's a valid concern.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be mindful of oversimplifying mindfulness and presenting it as a quick fix.
Yeah.
It's a practice that requires ongoing commitment and shouldn't be treated as a commodity.
Right. It's not just another item to check off your to-do list. And it's important to remember that mindfulness should be used ethically.
Absolutely. It should be about empowering individuals and promoting well-being,
Yeah.
not about making them more compliant or productive at the expense of their health and happiness.
Well said. So as we wrap up part one of our deep dive into mindfulness at work, we've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
We've seen that mindfulness has the potential to benefit both individuals and organizations,
Yeah.
but it's not without its complexities and potential pitfalls.
And in part two, we'll delve deeper into those complexities. We'll
Yeah.
explore potential avenues for future research and discuss how we can evaluate the impact of mindfulness in organizations more rigorously.
Welcome back to the deep dive. In part one, we talked about the potential benefits of mindfulness at work,
Right.
but we also touched on the need for more research and a critical look at how it's being applied.
Yeah.
So where do we go from here? How can we better understand and evaluate the impact of mindfulness in organizations?
That's a great question, and it's something that Passmore addresses in his papers.
Okay.
He outlines some exciting directions for future research
Yeah.
and emphasizes the need for stronger collaborations between practitioners and academics.
I'm all ears. What kind of research does he propose?
Well, he suggests three main areas to focus on.
Okay.
First, in the realm of leadership development,
Okay.
he proposes studying the impact of mindfulness training on leaders' effectiveness.
Mm-hmm.
This could involve using 360-degree evaluations where leaders are assessed by their peers, direct reports, and even their supervisors.
So we'd be getting a more well-rounded perspective on how mindfulness is influencing their leadership style and impact.
Right.
I can see how that would be valuable. What about the other areas?
The second area focuses on those workplace well-being programs we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Passmore argues that while measuring things like positive and negative affect are useful,
Mm-hmm.
the real value for organizations lies in understanding the impact on absenteeism and employee turnover.
Right, because those have a direct impact on the bottom line.
Yeah.
Fewer sick days, lower turnover rates. That's something any organization would want to see.
Exactly. Of course, a study like that would require really solid design.
Yeah.
We need to collect data over time, compare groups who receive mindfulness training to those who don't, and then carefully analyze the results. It's a big undertaking, but the potential payoff is huge.
No quick fixes here. What about the third area of research?
The third area targets coaching.
Okay.
Passmore suggests comparing the impact of mindful coaching on team performance against traditional goal-focused coaching.
Interesting. So we'd be looking at things like whether teams that receive mindful coaching are more productive, more effective, or maybe even better at collaborating.
Precisely. It would be fascinating to see how mindfulness training might influence team dynamics and overall performance.
Yeah.
But again, this kind of research requires careful planning and a true partnership between researchers and organizations.
You'd need willing participants, clear metrics, and a way to make sure the coaching is delivered consistently across the board.
Absolutely. And there's another crucial point Passmore raises.
Okay.
It's not just about conducting the research.
Right.
It's about sharing the findings, even if the results aren't what we expected.
That's so important. We need to move beyond just highlighting the positive results.
Yeah.
and be willing to publish both positive and negative outcomes.
It's about transparency and scientific integrity,
Hmm.
and it might require a bit of a mindset shift for some organizations.
I can imagine there might be some hesitation to share data, especially if it doesn't paint the most flattering picture.
Right. There could be a fear of negative publicity or damage to their image.
Yeah.
But Passmore draws a parallel to health studies, where hospitals and patients' identities are protected.
Okay.
He suggests organizations could adopt similar practices, ensuring anonymity while still contributing to a broader understanding of mindfulness at work.
That's a great point. It's about finding ways to collaborate and share knowledge while still respecting confidentiality. Now, before we move on, I think it's important to revisit some of those words of caution that Passmore shared.
Okay.
We touched on the McMindfulness critique earlier, but I think it's worth exploring a bit further.
Absolutely. It's a crucial point to consider.
Yeah.
The danger with anything that gains popularity is that it can become oversimplified, losing its depth and meaning in the process.
Right. It's like taking a complex concept and turning it into a catchy slogan or a quick fix.
Yeah.
And with mindfulness, there's a real risk of that happening, especially in the workplace.
Exactly. Mindfulness should never be used as a band-aid solution for deeper organizational issues.
Right.
And it should never be presented as a way to simply make employees more compliant or productive without addressing the underlying causes of their stress or burnout.
It's about creating a workplace culture that truly values well-being, not just using mindfulness as a tool to get more out of employees.
I couldn't agree more. It's about fostering a sense of authenticity, compassion, and genuine connection. It's about creating an environment where people can thrive, not just survive.
Beautifully said. Now, as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to turn our attention to you, the listener.
Okay.
You've heard the research, you've heard the potential benefits, you've heard the words of caution.
Right.
So knowing all of this, how would you approach applying mindfulness in your own work or life?
Would you start a personal mindfulness practice? Would you explore bringing mindfulness initiatives into your workplace? Or maybe you'd simply approach your work with a more mindful attitude,
Yeah.
paying attention to the present moment and cultivating non-judgment.
These are all great questions to ponder. And as always, we encourage you to keep exploring, keep learning, and dive deeper into the topics that spark your curiosity. Now, in our final part, we'll wrap up our deep dive with some key takeaways and a thought-provoking challenge to leave you with. Welcome back to the deep dive. We spent this episode unpacking mindfulness at work, exploring both the science and the application, and it's been quite a journey.
It has. We've covered a lot of ground.
We have from the research on how mindfulness impacts our brains to its potential benefits for leaders, teams, and even coaches.
Yeah, and all the nuances of applying it ethically.
And let's not forget those important words of caution.
Right.
It's crucial to be aware of the McMindfulness trend and ensure that mindfulness is used ethically and with a genuine focus on well-being.
Absolutely. It's not about turning mindfulness into a corporate buzzword or a quick fix for deeper problems.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's distill some key takeaways. What are the main points you hope our listener walks away with?
Well, first and foremost, mindfulness at work shows real promise. But it's important to remember that the science needs to catch up with the hype.
Yeah.
We need more robust research with larger sample sizes and a stronger focus on measuring tangible outcomes.
Right, it's not a magic bullet, but it does have the potential to benefit both individuals and organizations in meaningful ways.
Exactly. And as we explore those applications, we need to be mindful of the nuances. We need to avoid those overly simplistic McMindfulness interventions that lack depth and potentially misrepresent what mindfulness is truly about.
We need to be thoughtful and intentional in how we apply mindfulness, ensuring that it's used ethically and for the benefit of everyone involved.
Couldn't agree more. It's about empowering individuals and fostering a culture of well-being, not using mindfulness as a tool for control or manipulation.
Well said. So as we conclude this deep dive, I want to leave our listener with a final thought-provoking question. You've heard the research, the potential benefits, and the words of caution. Now knowing all of this, how would you approach applying mindfulness in your work or life?
Would you start a personal practice? Explore bringing mindfulness initiatives into your workplace. Or maybe you'd simply try to bring a more mindful attitude to your work, paying attention to the present moment and cultivating non-judgment.
The choice is yours, but we hope this deep dive has given you the knowledge and inspiration to explore the power of mindfulness in your own unique way.
Thanks for joining us on this journey,
Yes, thank you for listening.
and we look forward to diving into another fascinating topic with you soon.
Until next time, keep those minds sharp and those hearts open.